Welcome to Best Life Ever, the podcast with Kimi and Pua. And we have a special guest with us today, Derek Rydall. Welcome, Derek.
Thank you. It's my honor and pleasure to be here, truly.
Well, we are thrilled to talk with you today, and as we shared with our listeners already in your intro, you're the author of the #1 Amazon and Barnes & Noble bestseller, Emergence: 7 Steps for Radical Life Change, and the world's #1 expert on the law of emergence. So, first of all, can you share with us a little bit about what the law of emergence is?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, I don't. What people don't know is before we started, I showed you how flexible I was with my. So that's one of the benefits of understanding the law of emergence is you become more flexible. But no, it's important. I'll say it really brief. Like a lot of people, I struggled for many years to improve my life and heal my life and get over my bad childhood and succeed and attract and achieve and all these things. And after well over a decade of self-improvement, the only thing I'd improved was my ability to describe why my life was so messed up. I got really good at that. There was a lot of improvement in my ability to tell you why things didn't work, but my life was still not working. And it got so bad that I became addicted to drugs and alcohol and almost died of an overdose. And that wasn't quite enough, lying in the emergency room with the doctor telling me I'm lucky to be alive. That's enough for a lot of people to kind of crack them open and get them to realize something's wrong with this picture. And for me, it wasn't. My brother always said I had a big or a thick head. And when the universe took a 2x4 to my skull, it didn't crack me open. And I thought, I just need to work harder. I need to work smarter. I need to attract stronger. And so I dug back in and things got better for a little while. And as they usually do when you kind of start again and that new energy. But it eventually landed me in the same place emotionally. I was doing a film as an actor and the film went sideways and I had a messy breakup on set, romantic kind of disaster. And everything was going bad again. They were firing the director, firing the actors, and they were reshooting everything. And I just wanted to get lost from all of this. And I just didn't feel like I could catch a break. And I went diving in a coral reef. You've probably heard this story. And I got trapped in this coral reef and I almost drowned. And I won't go through all the details, but there was a moment where I was stuck in this reef, underwater, surrounded by spikes, inches from my throat, my chest, my eyes, fire coral all around me. Nobody was coming to save me. There was no way out. And I realized finally at a moment that I was going to drown. And I had a moment of unconditional surrender. I just realized I was going to drown. And so I surrendered. In that moment, something cracked open finally. And I saw that this self that I've been trying to fix and improve and make better and was a fictional character, an amalgamation of peer pressure, societal conditioning, parental fantasies, and that nothing I ever did was going to make him enough. And right behind that, there was a me that was already complete. So he couldn't be improved upon. And he had never been damaged. So he didn't need to be fixed. And it was just this awareness. So it was a flash. But I eventually did get out of that pocket of fire and spiked coral. And something so radically had shifted in this awareness that I was going to become a monk. I pulled out of society and went on this inner journey. And I began to see that just as the oak tree is already in the acorn doesn't have to go out and attract an oak or achieve an oak or improve itself into an oak. When it surrenders to the soil and the conditions in the soil match the pattern that's already in the seed, its potential, its purpose naturally emerges. And that's what I came to call the law of emergence, was that just as there's every seed that shows up in nature already contains the pattern and the perfection that's meant to unfold, the same thing is true with us, that there's a seed of potential, of power, of purpose that's planted in the soil of our soul. And when the conditions are right, it naturally emerges in our life. And we have 100% control over those conditions. Unlike a seed, which is indigenous, meaning its ability to thrive is based on its external environments, we are endogenous, which means that our capacity to thrive is based on our internal environment. We're like a walking greenhouse. We carry everything we need with us, no matter where you are, what you've been through, what side of the tracks you were born on or planted in. No matter how many clouds are blocking the light outside of you, you have the full capacity to activate that seed of potential in you and to bring forth a powerful harvest of good in your life. So that's what I discovered. And as I began to practice that, I also saw that much of my efforts to achieve and attract and improve were creating most of the resistance to what was naturally trying to emerge and creating most of the suffering. And when I got off that treadmill, or at least to some extent, I went from being broken and broke and suicidal and living on 19-cent boxes of mac and cheese in my one-room apartment. I did get really good at mac and cheese, I got to say. There's always a silver line. I could do some serious mac and cheese, like 3-layer cheese, a little, all kinds of different spice, Indian mac and cheese, Moroccan mac and cheese, classic Italian, Southern Italian mac. I mean, I was good at mac and cheese. But
sounds like another book you could write.
Right? The Zen in the art of mac and cheese. But ultimately, I went from all of that to, my life just began to flourish. And a lot of the things I've been to achieve started to then emerge naturally. And eventually I saw so many people struggling in the same way and thought, this is what I need to share with the world. And that's what brings me, to doing this work and to you guys today.
It's so beautifully put. I'm just sitting here in awe. And Kimi and I were talking about this earlier, where, this is such a great opportunity for us to kind of, it's like school where we can choose our teachers. And already we're learning so much, and it's just, you're mesmerizing.
I'm the Wizard of Oz.
You are.
the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, totally. I think awesome. A lot of people can really resonate with that feeling of just being at rock bottom, and what is possibly out there for me at this point?
Yes.
Where do I go from here? And we certainly talk to a lot of people who are in a similar place, and I think that's definitely something that people need to hear, right? Like this moment could be the thing that brings you from the downward spiral back up, right? And so you definitely had that in the water. My question for you is, sometimes we aren't aware of that one moment where we're like, oh my God, I'm your moment of emergence, right?
Right.
I'm not sure I can look back and think of that one moment that could shift my perspective. What do you advise, or what do you coach people through when they aren't quite sure why they're stuck or why they're reaching out for help, but they're not quite fulfilled?
Yeah. I mean, in some ways that can be harder because you don't quite have the catalyst to crack you open and cause a big burst of growth. And so sometimes your life can kind of settle into this place where you're just kind of unfulfilled. There's kind of mediocrity. You don't quite know what's next, what's emerging. You're just unfulfilled. And it can be even worse if you've got what the world calls the things you should have, success. You've got some money, you've got a job, and you kind of think, well, who am I to complain? And that's why I remember doing a talk once, what's working that's in your way? Because we often talk about what's not working, but also the areas that are working can be some of our biggest obstacles, because we don't want to let go of the comfort or the convenience or the familiar. And but you have to be willing to begin to live a life more on your growing edge. There's an edge, what I call the emerging edge, where there's a vision that's trying to emerge, and it will disrupt your life. Excuse me. And so the first thing when you're in that place, or really even when you're not in that place, like as a general rule, is you want to become much more interested, in what is the vision for my life? What is if I could truly live the life of my heart's desire, my deepest dreams, not just more comfort and more convenience. Unfortunately, a lot of people have TV screens that are bigger than the vision for their life. And so you begin to become interested in living a bigger life, a visionary life, a life of contribution, of creativity, more than you are interested in merely, just getting the things. You didn't come here. You didn't show up on this planet. You didn't travel through galaxies, to show up here to get a sale at Macy's or to get a good job and have enough money so you could go out on Friday night and enjoy the weekend to go back to your job again on Monday. You didn't come here for that. It's nice to have a stable job, money, body, but you didn't even come here to get your body in shape. Those are all the structures: health, wealth, relationship. These are all structures that you want to stabilize so that they're not taking you out of the game. But once you get your body and your bank account and your money and your relationships together, that's not the end result. That's the beginning point. That's the platform upon which you can really launch into a life that leaves a lasting legacy, that makes a real difference and an impact. A life where you're giving the gifts that you came here for. Nothing shows up in this world except as an answer to a call. The reason why we're on this particular technology is because somewhere there was a real need, and this was the answer. If you have a chair, somewhere there was a need for a form of support, and the answer was that chair. Nothing appears except as an answer to a prayer, to a need, to a call. And so because you're here, you are somebody's answer. You are an answer to something or someone in this world in a very deep and a very profound way. And so you want to begin to get in touch with, what is that? What is the answer that my life represents? What is the answer my life, or what's the question my life is answering? And what is the work or the gifts that I'm really here to give? And that's really important, especially if you're in a kind of a depressed or a stuck place, because a lot of times one of the reasons the word depression is an evidence that there's a lack of full expression. And a lot of times when we're stuck or we're experiencing chronic problems, it's because somewhere along the line, we did say a prayer, or we had a desire. We yearned for something more. We yearned to make a difference, or to experience more life, more love, more abundance, whatever. And the minute you have that intention or that prayer, that potential is instantly activated in you. I want people to understand that every prayer, every affirmation, every intention is instantly answered. But here's where the challenge comes in. Now that new life is trying to emerge through you, but it's bumping up against the old structures, the old paradigms, the old self-concepts. So you've activated a prayer. I want to experience love and romance and community, relationship, companionship that's rich and real and authentic and connected. So let's just say that's your prayer. Somewhere on the line, you may not have been aware that you prayed it, but you activated it. But you still have a belief that there's not enough good people to go around, or you can't really trust people, or you're afraid to really put your heart out there. Well, all of those concepts and beliefs are creating a very narrow, constricted space where this larger vision is trying to emerge. And as it bumps into that, it creates a problem in your life, or a crisis, a challenge. You feel lonely, whatever. It creates some kind of chronic challenge. And the meaning of that chronic challenge, whether it's depression, stagnation, stuckness, procrastination, loneliness, the meaning of it is that you're trying to survive in a world that is too small for you, that there's a larger life. Maybe you want more abundance in your life, and you've activated more abundance through desiring it, praying, affirming, visualizing, but you still have conversations about how there's not enough to go around, or the economy is terrible, or, whatever the case may be, I can't get a good job, or I'm not good enough. Well, those conversations and those beliefs are not in integrity with what you activated. You cannot make a demand on life that exceeds your belief about it. So if you're saying you want to live abundantly, successfully, you want to be in love, etc., then you have to begin to identify what are the thoughts, what are the conversations, what are the actions, the habits that aren't in alignment with that vision. And then you begin to let those go. And then you also want to look at what are the thoughts and the conversations and the habits that are in alignment with that. If I was living that life, who would I be then? How would I show up then? What would the quality of my character be? What would I bring to my everyday? And you start to bring that, even in the midst of what might appear to be a broken body, a low bank account, or no relationship. You start bringing it. Because remember, one of the core foundations of emergence is whatever's missing is what we're not giving. Whatever we're waiting for, we're waiting with and weighing it down. And so that's how I like to say emergence is the ultimate weight loss program, WAIT. And so you guys can be a different kind of a weight loss expert. You can help people to lose all the weight, WAIT, so that they can start bringing whatever they need to their life right away. And as you start doing that, you realize you're not a victim of circumstance. You realize that you're more like a divine power plant. And a power plant doesn't receive energy, it generates it. And so wherever you are right now, one of the biggest ways to get unstuck or unstagnated is to have an inspiring vision and to take consistent action regardless of how you feel about it in the direction of that. And you start to create new habits and build momentum. So that's a long answer to that, but hopefully that's...
Yeah. I think these are, as we know, these are really interesting times that we're living in, and
yes,
increasingly, of course, with technology comes a lot more noise, a lot more accessibility. We're sort of expected to be available 24/7, and there's just like a lot more static out there, and a lot more noise, a lot more fear. A lot of very charged emotions, especially lately. And do you have any practical tools that you use or that you encourage people to try out to sort of bring some calm or some peace in such a maybe noisy time?
Yeah, well, the first thing to understand is that nothing outside of us has any power whatsoever to determine what we think or feel. So, when an event happens outside of us, like there's an old, probably a Zen statement, but, when you hear the alarms going off or the bells going off and it disturbs your meditation or your sleep, it's not disturbing you. It's activating or revealing the disturbance that was already in you. And so, because and when you have a meditative practice, you can actually experience this directly. You can see that, it's not like the event happens outside of you and it secretes some kind of, substance that gets into your skin and suddenly gets into your body and causes you to feel a certain way. It's the meaning you assign that event that determines what you feel. But it's 100% an inside job. We're not really in the world is in us. And we're just moving around in consciousness, experiencing the different dimensions of our own consciousness. So when a disturbing or when an event happens outside of us, it shows us where we really are in consciousness. It's like I like to say, if you squeeze an orange, all that comes out is orange juice. So when life squeezes you, what comes out? And whatever comes out is what was in you. And there's no judgment. It's like good. It's like, depending on when people are listening to this now, in the United States, we now have a new president-elect, Donald Trump. And for a lot of people, that's like down the rabbit hole, through the looking glass, incomprehensible. And it's bringing up a lot of fear and a lot of stuff. But there's a lot of, racism and misogyny and bigotry has been brought up, and people who were underground KKK and nationalists are now coming up and feeling like they've got a voice now and they can spread their hatred and their bigotry, and it's showing up. But the important thing to know is that didn't just start on election day. That's been there all along, and this just brought to the surface what was in the collective consciousness, and that's a really good thing. That's a healthy thing. That showed, because even though it's unconscious, it's like termites eating at the structure of your home. It's still damaging. It's like, gophers under your grass until the driveway collapses, because you didn't realize there was all this stuff underneath there eating out, and deteriorating the structures. So the fear, the anger, the resentment, the separation, all of that was there. Now it's visible. And now we can do our work even more deeply and more richly. And the same is true with our individual lives. Whether it's your child gets sick, or you lose your job, or your partner is acting out, you feel unloved, disrespected, invalidated, unseen, etc., etc. None of those circumstances are causing you to feel any of that. It's revealing those patterns and those capacities and those beliefs in you. And it's happening because somewhere along the line, you said, I want to be more. I want to do more. I want to have more. I want to grow. And so, it's like if you pray for patience, life doesn't just go, ta-da, you're patient. You suddenly find yourself in rush hour traffic over and over again. You're like more pissed off than you've ever been. And you're like, God, why have you forsaken me? I'm angrier than ever. I was praying. Did you not understand did you not get the telegram? I said, patience, more patience. And the universe is like, well, we got to get that other stuff out first. And you're building a muscle. And so every time you're in traffic, that's the gym. You're working out. The problems that show up in your life, that's your spiritual trainer saying, come on, knocking at your door, wake up, it's time to get to work. And you're like, I don't want to. Can I just sleep a little longer? It's like, no, rips the covers off of you, put on your running shoes, put on your CrossFit training. It's time to get to work, and we're going to build a capacity of loving and forgiving like nobody's ever seen before. We're going to, when it's in the valley where you build your mountaintop mindset, and you can't have a mountain without a valley. And you can't just jump from one mountain to the next. You got to go back down the valley again, and you build more strength, and you come back up to the next mountaintop. And it's in a recession, we build resourcefulness. And when we feel separate from everybody else, connection that the world can't give you and it can never take away. And so in a time of lack and limitation, financially or whatever, that's when we're being called to have an ever deeper realization of how supported we really are, of how powerful and abundant we really are, so we can get tapped in, no longer leaning on resources, but leaning on the source. And the source of all creation is within us. The source of love, the source of power, the source of confidence, poise, self-assurance, the source of wealth, health, happiness. It's all an inside job. So when the outside fails us, it's happening so that we can get the real thing on the inside. And once we get the real, now we are literally a beneficial presence in the world. And wherever we go, that area that we are now in the real, we will be a healing influence. We will be the light in the world. We will lift people. We will heal people, even without saying a word, simply because we've cleared that spot within our own consciousness, and we have anchored ourselves in that area of truth. And the more you do that, the more the universe will put you out into larger and larger opportunities so that you can be that beneficial presence. I know I went way past the question, but hopefully that's
tears in my eyes. Wow.
You are an incredible human. We may never let you hang up.
It takes one to know one, my dear.
This is so awesome. I want to see if you'll expand just a little bit. You touched on it just slightly. And we do work with a lot of entrepreneurs who are really just starting to dip their toes in the water of their own gift and their own vision and what they're really put on this earth to do. And every day we pinch ourselves. It's such a blessing to be able to help these people. Kind of, we sometimes we call it like their coming out party. Like they're coming out of the closet, no longer a 9-to-5 worker, and it really is a lot of fun. And as you know, there's a lot of challenge, right, that comes with starting your own business and breaking away from the traditional way of success.
Right.
And what we are really inspired, one of the things we're inspired by is your philosophy to just generously and openly give. You give tons of value. You have a lot of free resources on your website. You give of your time, and clearly you are helping a ton of people and businesses in the world. And I was just hoping you would expand a little bit on that, just because when we talk about that with entrepreneurs, it's a little, it can almost feel counterintuitive to give things away for free when you're looking to support yourself and your family.
Yes. Yeah. Well, a lot of what we call counterintuitive, it's not really intuitive. It's not really intuition we're going counter to. It's counter programming.
Mm.
It's not really our intuition that's telling us to withhold or to be safe or to protect. That's our programming. I had a realization. I went through a really challenging period the last couple of years. I don't know how much you've been listening or are aware of. But I separated from my wife. We were together almost 25 years. And a lot of you grow and expand. Some people and circumstances will rise with you, and some you'll just change in ways that's different. But it's not always easy or comfortable. So I went through a really deep, dark kind of night where I had to dig my roots even more deeply than ever before. And on the tail end of that, I had this realization. One day I was walking across a parking lot, and I had this surge of love and generosity move through me. And I wanted to give everything I had away. And I was like, whoa, it was so overpowering. And I like literally told my family, like, keep an eye on me because I might give away everything. And then it kind of passed, and then it happened again, like a month or so later. And I had the realization, I mean, my prayer had been for the longest time, to be an ever pure instrument of love and generosity and unconditional, all conditional giving and loving, a love and a generosity that has no bounds, no conditions. Like when it says in the Bible, he pours his rain on the saint and the sinner and shines his light on the just and the unjust. God is no respecter of persons. So it's talking about, it's a principle that this presence is a principle, and it's unconditionally giving. Life is unconditionally giving of itself. And the second time this happened, I suddenly was aware that's how life feels all the time. That life just lives to give because life has everything. This presence, whether you call it life, love, God, truth, Uncle Joe, it doesn't really matter. There's this something that is the very source of all creation, that is the very truth of our being. And its nature is completeness and wholeness and infinite abundance. And so the only thing that it has to do is to give of itself. And the more it gives of itself, the more of itself it gets to experience. And so what I realized what was happening is through my own breakdown and disintegration and ultimately reintegration, I was a more and more open and available instrument for this impulse of life. And so it's important to know that you're not giving away to get anything. When I'm giving of my content and giving all, it's not a strategy to like manipulate people to get something. That's not real giving. If you're giving to get, that's called a contract. And that's okay too. Sometimes you come into those, this is what I do. We're exchanging energy. But But you want to live your life primarily giving unconditionally, with the knowing that, again, whatever's missing is what you're not giving. If you want more to come into your life, you have to let more life come out of you, because all of infinity is locked up inside of you. As the poet Robert Browning called it, the imprisoned splendor. And so, like, when a teacher teaches, at the end of the year, are they all out of teaching? Are they like, well, I don't remember math anymore, I gave it all away, or are they like having insights all year long about the deeper nature of whatever they're teaching? They have more knowledge, more wisdom, more intelligence. And when you love somebody deeply and truly, unconditionally love, do you end up running out of love? When you're so the same thing is true with all the qualities of our life. The more of it you generate and circulate, the more of it you have. You become a larger instrument. You have greater capacity. The more I share and do podcasts and give away free, like now I literally have more than I could share probably in this entire lifetime already. Like the amount of books and programs and podcasts that are lined up, that are literally circling the runway trying to land, that I'm out there directing traffic, air traffic control, trying to get these ideas refueled over there while I get this one to land over on this runway. There's so much creativity and inspiration and energy coming through me that it's uncontainable. And so you'll never have less when you give from that place. But if you give from a place of trying to get, you're saying I'm lacking something, and then you will experience a lack. But if you're giving from the knowing that you have an infinite reservoir of all abundance, all good, and you're not giving for any reason other to expand your capacity for giving and your capacity for loving and forgiving and serving and creating, you will be a larger and larger instrument for that. And one of the principles in my Awakened Wealth work is the hypnotic wealth spell is to contract around problems and challenges. So when the economy shrinks or something happens, we've been taught, okay, I got to cut back, I got to cut down, I got to budget. And that's the worst thing to do if you want to expand. So the principle is you need to expand in the face of contraction. And you need to ask, how can I be an even bigger giver? How can I, be even more, not less? And on the other side of that contraction, your channels will be wider and stronger. And you will be able to generate more into your business, into your life than you were before that contraction. But if you contract around that challenge, and I got to make sure I don't want to give away too much, because then if I give it all away, they're not going to want anything. And you're contracting. On the other side of that, you're going to be smaller, and your business is going to be smaller ultimately. So you got to give from that place. Now, there is some practical logic when it comes to being an entrepreneur, depending on what kind of work you're doing, in terms of knowing what to give away and how to give it away in a sense that really serves the people. But you're not, like if you're walking by a restaurant and they've got a whole bunch of hors d'oeuvres outside, and they're giving you really like their best tastes of some of the very best hors d'oeuvres and food, and that's awesome. That's very generous, and you eat that. And some people will just eat those and be like, "Thank you," and keep walking. But some people will eat some of those hors d'oeuvres and go, "Wow, if this is what they're giving away, if this is just the hors d'oeuvre, the appetizer, what would a meal be like? I'm going to come in there and have a meal at your restaurant." So that's why I never give away free stuff. I give away the best that I can give away in that hour or whatever, and I could charge for it. So you don't ever want to give away free stuff. You want to give away your best, and understanding that you're taking your clients on a path, and very rarely can you really solve all their problems in that one free coaching session or that one podcast. But you do want to address their most important problems. You do want to address their core ambitions and aspirations and challenges, and you want to give them some kind of relief, some kind of solution, something they can really apply and get progress with. But then you also want to understand the larger picture of where you want to help them go, of where they really want to go. a big vision for their life. And then even though you may give them a lot of value in that, then you open up to what's the bigger possibility. So you create what's called a dynamic tension. So they're like, wow, this is amazing. You're generous. This is really helpful. And then you help them see that there's so much more. And now they're going to want to take the next step with you. And because you understand there's only so much you can do. But so there is a strategy in terms of, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people, especially like in the coaching industry, the self-help or the healing arts, is they'll do like a free coaching session or a free exercise session or free massage or something. And they'll just pour their heart and soul out. And they'll just coach blood, sweat, and tears. And they'll just be helping everything the person brings up. At the end of the call, the person is like, you're amazing. That was amazing. And I'll talk to you later. And it's like, goodbye. It's like, what? I just gave you my soul. And you're like, not going to join my practice? And I mean, I used to do that too. And what I realized is that I was giving them the appetizer. I was giving them a meal. I was out there giving them the full buffet, and then they're eating it and they're stuffed to the gills. And then they're like, I'm good, man. I'm good. And they don't need any more. And there's two reasons why that's not good. First, it's not the best business sense, but it's also not serving them, because they don't just need the meal once. There's something you have to offer that's to help them achieve something much more deep or much more long term. And if you overcoach them in one of those sessions, or you over deliver on a webinar, in a sense, because you're feeling like you have some shadow around, being stingy or greedy or not wanting to ask or afraid to charge or charge too much, and all these kind of the baggage that comes up, then what happens is it's like a doctor that gives them something that makes the pain go away for the moment, but they actually have a deeper problem that can only be resolved over time. But now they're not going to come back. They're not going to get the real treatment they need. So it's not just a business strategy. It's understanding, if you really want to make a difference and make an impact, there is some strategy in what you give and how you give it, so that you don't stop and thwart the full process of the kind of value and results you can bring them over the long term with your product or program or service. So it's a combination. I'm giving a lot, but there is strategy behind it. There's an understanding of what's the big program or the big result that I want them to get, and then breaking it down. What's the thing they need then? What's the thing they need now? What's a piece of that will help them? What's the appetizer? What's the full meal? And then what's the meal plan, right? So there's like a whole pathway that you want to design for your prospective clients, whether it's a product, a service, a program, whatever. So it's a balance, it's a balance of understanding how to take them along the way, but also how to be generous in the moment. And if that pushes your buttons, like I'm afraid I'm going to give too much away, or on that side, and you're withholding, there's some shadows in there that you need to look at and embrace. And if on the other side, you're like, well, I don't want to charge too much, or I'm afraid to make the ask, or I don't want them to think I'm stingy or greedy or needy or whatever. That's also a shadow that you need to embrace. And here's the really good news, especially if you're in the transformational workspace, transformational space, whatever you're struggling with, whether it's on either side of those equations, that's part of your divine curriculum. That's part of your workshop. That, as I say to people when I help them develop their business and their platform in the world, you've been living the workshop you're supposed to be giving. And when you start to look at that, you go, ooh, so you're going to be teaching that. You're going to be helping other people get through those same thresholds. So as you're going through those challenges, none of it gets wasted if you do it consciously. And then you get excited about the work, because you're going to have even more value to offer the next person that comes along.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Exactly what we needed to hear.
Where's your camera? Are you listening to us all the time? Because
conversation.
We had this conversation 2 hours ago. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
What was the conversation? What's in essence, what's the part of it that you were?
We were talking about so the coaching that we do, we will often do a complimentary session just
Right.
to have them get to know us and get to know
Yeah.
what we do, and we get to know them and their challenges, what they're looking to accomplish and move towards. And we were just talking about whether or not that's still working for us, the complimentary session. Yeah, and so we just had a conversation about it. So it's super awesome that you
Yeah.
touched on that.
I used to do a lot of those, and banging my head against the wall hour after hour after hour, coaching my heart and soul out, and people just saying, you're amazing, and nobody joining my program. And then I began to understand, what was happening. And then I filled my practice very quickly after that. But yeah, there's a whole lot I could go down around this path. But if you struggle on the side of asking for what you really want and as much as you want in any area of life, and or charging what you're worth, besides the shadow work, which is a whole nother topic that we could discuss, because there's some kind of shadow, some kind of core wound you had that made you feel like it's wrong to charge for this kind of work or whatever. But there's also a projection. You're often looking at the other person and feeling like, oh, I don't want to take too much from them, or if they pay me, now they have less, or, oh, they say they're struggling, I feel bad, shouldn't I just help them out? Let me just lower my price a little more. And the problem with that is that you're seeing them as less than they really are. And they did a study where they had told these teachers, I don't know if you heard me ever talk about this, but they split up these kids into 3 classrooms. They told one teacher this was the general population students. They told the next teacher these were the most above average kids in the whole school. And the other teacher, these were the below average kids. Now, they were all the same, from the same general population. But the teacher thought these are average, above average, and below average. At the end of the year, the ones they thought were average were all scoring average. The ones they believed were below average were doing below average work. And the ones they believed were above average were having some of the highest test scores in the district. What changed? The box the teacher held them in. If they held them in a small box, they shrank to fit it. If they held them in a big box, they grew to fill it. And so how you hold your clients, prospective clients, and ultimately anybody, unless they're more conscious than you, is the box you're putting them in. So if you see this client, you're like, oh, they're struggling, they don't have a lot, those poor people, I don't want to take a lot from them. That box is just shrinking and shrinking. And you're seeing them as these poor people, these people with lack, these people that can't afford it. And first of all, it's a projection. But second of all, it's a lie. And it's a form of mental, spiritual malpractice, because you're literally shrinking them until they become more conscious. But so instead, if you go, okay, I'm experiencing that, but what's the truth about them? The truth about them is that they are connected to source as much as anybody, that they have the same capacity. There's never a lack of resource, just a lack of resourcefulness. And they can become more resourceful if they are willing. And so I'm going to hold them to a high standard. I'm going to speak to their greatness. I'm going to speak to their power. I'm going to speak to the truth of their abundance connection to the universe. And that's the box I'm going to hold them in. Unabashedly, unashamedly, and unapologetically. If you're willing to do that, not only will more people be willing and able to pay you what you're worth, but you turn a transactional relationship into a transformational one. And they will become more of their real self even before you've officially started your coaching program, because they've had to dig deeper. They've had to expand their channel. And the other principle to understand is that nobody is your source, but everybody is your channel. So it may be coming through them. If they pay you, whatever comes to you is actually coming from you, but it comes through the channels of the world. So, if you're a stay-at-home mom and your husband brings home the paycheck, but you enjoy the benefits of that, that is your consciousness showing up, not just his. And you can rest with power knowing I did that. my consciousness of abundance, my connection is showing up as, and when I've worked with women in that kind of, and it can be the other way around. It can be a man with a woman that's bringing home, and they've gotten that. Suddenly their husband gets a bonus or raise or something, and they're like, I did that, and then likewise, your clients or prospects, when they pay you and they give you stuff, it's coming through them, but it's actually an activity of your consciousness, or it could pay you, or whatever the situation is. You're not taking anything from them. In fact, your willingness to see them as a channel allows them to be a bigger channel. And it allows more to show up in their life. And it's no longer a zero-sum game. It's an infinite pie. And the more you're willing to enjoy it and to circulate it, the bigger the pie gets, not the smaller. So I hope that adds a little bit of...
Amazing. Oh.
This is my belly.
What do you think about that, Katie?
So amazing. Wow. I feel like we could talk to you all day long, but we do want to make sure that we spend some time. Just, can you share us a little bit about what you're excited about right now and what projects you've got going on? What would you like to share with our audience, and how can they find out more about what you're up to?
Sure. Well, they can certainly start they can also check out my podcast, Emergence, EMERGENCE, where I go in depth into a lot of the ways to apply these principles. And then there's, you can go to myemergencebook.com. And if you get a copy of the book through that site, I'm going to give you it's either $1,500 or $1,800 worth of bonuses, like programs and coaching and stuff, to really support you in having, and they're real programs. None of it's filler, none of it's to support you in really getting real results. And then if you also just want to take a little mini e-course video course on emergence, you can go to lawofemergence.com. And then, of course, you can go to DerekRydall.com, DerekRydall.com. And there's a bunch of other resources there. So those three areas: get the book, get the podcast, and you'll have plenty to work with to start to familiarize yourself with this material. And I'm all about real world results. I mean, I love going down the rabbit hole and talking about the big ideas and the principles and the concepts. But I'm also very much about you creating real world results. It's hard to be a light in the world if you can't pay your light bill. And so I want you to be successful, and I want more and more people to be conscious and have all those structures stabilized in their life. So this isn't just even though we've done a lot of theoretical discussion, it's very, very practical.
Cool. I have one more question for you. You said we could ask you anything. So
Yes,
can you share something maybe kind of fun with our audience that nobody knows about you?
Let's see.
Besides your flexibility.
I was going to say, put my leg up there.
We saw you limbering up there for a second.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm doing a little runner stretches, getting ready to do something. For those of you that are just listening, they're like, what the heck are they doing? What's going on over there? What's something fun that people don't know about me? Gosh, there's a lot of fun. I've actually I've done this only a couple of times recently, but I dressed up as like an 80s rocker with like the big hair and the duck choker collar and like the fishnet and the tight spandex pants and I've done it a few times recently and noticed how much fun it is to like dress up. I used to be an actor, so playing other characters, performing, emoting. I just bought a piano and started writing music again. I used to be a singer-songwriter, and so I love that. So I'm learning some like John Legend and Ed Sheeran and Adele and who else? A couple other really cool stuff. So I've been singing and playing again and writing music again.
Love it.
That's something I haven't really told anybody.
When you dressed up as a 80s rocker, you like went out to dinner or just in your house?
Went out to dinner first. Yeah, I went to dinner. I went to dinner, and then went to a club, and yeah, it's fun. It reminded me when I was an actor, and me and my friends, we would go out at night and just be in character.
Wow.
I'd be like a German exchange student. I remember I was in New York, and I went to a Broadway show. It was Les Mis, I think, and I showed up as like an Italian foreign exchange student, and I was dressed in like that little kind of the hat and the vest, and I can't do the accent anymore right now, but I was like, in broken English, I was like, how do you say, I was doing this whole thing. And the woman or the girl that was looking to seat, I was trying to find my ticket, and I was like, I was doing this whole thing, and she was so charmed by my Italian foreign exchange student. She was like, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to help you out. And she brought me down to like the most expensive, like orchestra pit seats, and sat me in this perfect, like right there, the most amazing seat in the house. And so I was like, pretty cool. There's something to this. So I used to love doing that kind of thing. And I'm enjoying that again, when you dress up and when you pretend, you actually touch new qualities that are present and available to you. And I'm like a romantic and a passionate guy. So I love doing just crazy, romantic, adventurous, creative stuff like that. So that's a side of me I don't talk about very often. So
love it.
You're definitely gonna have to come, or we're gonna have to fly up there because we have to all hang out.
Yeah, we have to all go out.
Rockers, yes.
Go out as 80s rockers. That's right. We would rock it. We would totally. We would rock it. We would rock it for sure.
Super, super awesome. I think that wraps it up. Unless you have any questions, Kitty.
Do you have any fitness tips for me?
Looks like you're doing just fine.
I think we just heard a lot of fitness tips for you, actually. We're going back to the drawing board.
That's great.
No, we love it. We got so much value out of this. We're so excited to share this with our tribe. You're a light, like you just illuminate, and it's just been such an honor to have you on and to connect with you and get to see you face to face. Really cool.
The feeling is mutual.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to seeing you in person in the island.
Thanks, Derek.
All right.